Have you ever had so many Slack pings or PagerDuty alerts that just aren't useful that you actually just mute and ignore them altogether? That's called alert fatigue, and it's one of the clearest signs of where your platform maturity really sits. What's important to know is that alert fatigue isn't really a people problem at the end of the day. It's actually a problem with the platform and the environment that you're working in itself. For both platform engineers and the adjacent people on ops teams, if the teams you are working with are drowning in noise or you yourself are drowning in noise, you're not operating an actual platform. You're basically just babysitting infrastructure and systems, and it's a loud daycare. Things are being thrown all over the place. So what is alert fatigue really? Well, it's the idea that too many alerts become something that engineers ignore and tune out. When everything is just critical or red all the time, nothing really is. And it's like the story of the boy who cried wolf. In our terms in platform engineering, we would call it the ping that cried failure. So what's really the hidden cost of alert fatigue? Because on the surface, it sounds like something that isn't that problematic, but in reality, it is. It results in things like burnout or turnover. So engineers who just get frustrated and stop caring, they back away from owning things. And backing away from ownership is a cultural problem. It leads to a lot of other issues in terms of the day-to-day work that engineers do. Other costs associated with alert fatigue are things like missing critical issues. So the actual signals, the actual problems get lost in the noise. And when downtime happens, it becomes a panic. Your incident response slows down because people hesitate to trust alerts when they're constantly hit with them. Is it actually a problem, or is it just one of those weird alerts that doesn't mean anything? And with this comes opportunity cost, because when you suddenly panic to respond to an issue, even if you had forewarning because you ignored the alerts, you're spending all of your energy fighting fires instead of actually building platforms that matter and platforms that work. If your platform is generating noise instead of useful insights, it's failing users, regardless as to whether or not that user is a dev or you as a platform engineer. So what does this reveal in terms of a platform's maturity? Well, in an immature platform, every system can be shouting at once. There tends to be high alert fatigue here, and there's no clear prioritization. It's just a very loud mess. In platforms that are evolving towards maturity, what we often see is more centralized observability. There's clear ownership over things like metadata, and it's also very clear where alerts have to go and when they have to go there. But the most mature platforms really treat alerting as its own subproduct. So a product within the platform's product itself. Alerts are tied into things like service health, SLAs, business outcomes. There is actual value in the alerts that are received. So if you're not quite at this stage yet and you know that this is a problem, what can you do? Well, there's a couple things. First, introduce some layer of observability here. Not every alert belongs to every engineer, and you need metadata to tie alerts to ownership and context. So for example, this is service X, it's owned by team Y, and it costs Z amount per minute to be down or have a problem. That gives you layers, but also contextual information to make sure the alert goes where it needs to go. You should also treat alerts like features. So iterate, review, and retire old ones. If the messaging in an alert isn't useful, it's probably not going to help anybody, and it's easy to ignore. Make sure that the way alerts are presented and the messaging behind them is very sensical. Iterate on those constantly and understand what is effective messaging versus what isn't. Something we're starting to see more and more is that people are using AI tools to help filter the noise. So what we often see, for example, is that an AI tool might provide a summary of non-critical alerts in the course of a day, but making sure anything that is critical sounds the alarm for real and is taken seriously. The way I see it, the best platforms that are out there don't just have more alerts for the sake of having them, they actually just have much better curated and contextual alerts that prevent things like fatigue. So if you're starting to see this idea of alert fatigue in your own platform, don't blame yourself, don't blame your engineers or even your ops colleagues. Start by looking at the platform and where it is on a maturity scale. Remember that your platform needs to make lives easier, not just wake people up at 3 a.m. for the sake of noise.